Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I'm going to talk about an article that I saw on The Root. The article is entitled, "Some Folks Don't Like Me Because I'm Black," says Obama. The article is written by Edward Williams. And in the article, he quotes some of President Obama's statements. And the statements come from an interview that President Obama did with the New Yorker magazine. And in the interview, President Obama basically acknowledged that race is a factor in terms of the opposition that he has faced on a lot of issues. And I'm about to read that quote in 1 second. Let me just get this article down. So the president said, "There's no doubt that there are some folks who just really dislike me because they don't like the idea of a black president. There's a historical connection between some of the arguments that we have politically and the history of race in our country. And sometimes it's hard to disentangle those issues." So that was the president's quote during the New Yorker interview. And in that interview, he also explained that some people may support him because of race. He said some white liberals may support him because of his race, and some African Americans may support him because of race. So he tried to balance out his remarks. His remarks were not, one-sided. He always tries to weigh both sides so that no one will feel slighted. But despite doing that, these people aren't satisfied no matter what Obama does. He's tried to appease these people. He's tried to meet with these people. He's tried to downplay race. But these people continue to attack him. And after he did this interview, of course, a lot of the conservatives came out against him. You had Sarah Palin say that he was using the race card. You had Rush Limbaugh condemning his statement, saying that this is not a racist country. And you had another person, Alice Stewart, talk about how the president refuses to acknowledge racial progress. And anybody that has followed President Obama's history, anyone that has followed his time in the White House, they know clearly that the president has not played the race card. The president frequently avoids issues of race. And, I've criticized him in a lot of my blog articles for doing so. And, there's some article that was written a while ago, and I may put the source in the description to this video. But in the article, it pointed out how President Obama talks about race less frequently than his predecessors, his white predecessors. So this notion that Obama likes to play the race card is simply ridiculous. Now, a lot of us have been saying this for a long time. We've pointed out how a lot of the opposition that President Obama faces is due to his race. And I want to show you a couple of news clips where people make statements. Prominent white politicians and political players make statements that have racial undertones to them. You see, nowadays, people don't outright use racist terminology when they're in high positions, when they are leaders of industry, when they are politicians. They don't call you the N-word outright. Instead, they use code words. They use dog whistles. And these dog whistles send a message to a lot of the people that have racial or racist attitudes. And they use these dog whistles to motivate those people to vote against the president. They use those kind of dog whistles to mobilize opposition against the president. So I'm going to show you a couple of news clips and then continue the discussion on the other side.
Going to be shy. So how did you think he did? And are you pleased by the performance? He's gotten rave reviews almost universally.
Andrea, what people saw last night, I think, was a president that revealed his incompetence, how lazy and detached he is, and how he has absolutely no idea how serious the economic problems of the country are and how he has failed to even begin to address them. And I think even the liberal press reacted with shock at this revelation, and I find it fascinating now this morning after they've slept to watch them all scrambling around to clean up the mess the president left on the floor last night. On the other hand, Mitt Romney came in with a lot of specifics, a lot of very sharp knowledge of issues, not only with the Obama version of bumper sticker numbers, but the governor showed that he understands policy and he understands how to make policy into law, talking about what he did in Massachusetts.
Governor, I want to give you a chance to maybe take it back. Did you really mean to call Barack Obama, the President of the United States, lazy?
Yes, I think you saw him admit it the night before when he delivered the pizzas. He said, you know, they're making me do this work. He didn't want to prepare for this debate. He's lazy and disengaged.
I think that there certainly was a performance issue there, and whether or not he was in his best form last night, a lot of people are questioning that. Just the one-on-one against Mitt Romney turned in a very strong performance. But I think to call the president lazy and disengaged is another whole question.
Republicans just want the rich to have all the money, and that they're willing to put the country in default to do that.
Right, and if you're the Republicans, what you should say is we have more people on food stamps today than ever before in history. President Obama is the most successful food stamp president in American history. Paychecks, or do you want food stamps? Republicans shouldn't flinch.
I mean, one of the big things is on the birth certificate. So what I'd like to do.
Why does that make me not serious? I mean, I think that resonated with a lot of people.
But you don't still question that he was born in the United States, do you?
I have no idea.
Even at this point?
Well, I don't know. Was it a birth certificate? You tell me. You know, some people say that was not his birth certificate. I'm saying I don't know. Nobody knows. And you don't know either.
So we have former Governor Sununu describing the president as lazy and detached. He made these descriptions or used this terminology after one of the presidential debates. And if you just look at that terminology just by itself in isolation from history, then one could say, well, how is that racist? That doesn't say anything about race. But if you look at it within its historical context, when you are familiar with the fact that African Americans have been stereotyped as being lazy and shiftless for decades, you understand that this is nothing but another code word. It's nothing but another dog whistle. And as pointed out in the news clip, you know, I showed you some clips from an article with Sarah Palin. She described the president as shucking and jiving. We all understand that that's, again, you know, racial terminology. Those terms were used to describe African Americans. They're terms that are associated with minstrels. So there's racial undertones to those statements. And then we have Newt Gingrich. He calls the president the food stamp president, the most successful food stamp president. And we know about how welfare has been politicized in this country. If you understand history, you understand this. You know, in order to attack welfare programs, what they did in the past is they depicted the program as a minority program, as a program for lazy African Americans. They had the image of the so-called welfare queen milking the system dry, exploiting the system, being lazy, and collecting a check from hardworking taxpayers. That was the stereotype that they used in many political campaigns. And Newt Gingrich knows this very well. And he used this type of terminology to appeal to Southern voters, to appeal to racist white voters. So again, we have another example of code words being used. And you saw that clip with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, for a while, demanded that President Obama produce a birth certificate. And, there's this whole movement in this country called birtherism, where these idiots still doubt whether or not President Obama is a citizen of this country. Now, after, you know, receiving a lot of pressure from idiots like Donald Trump, you had the President of the United States basically forced to produce his documents. It's like these people said, "Show me your papers," like he was some kind of criminal or something. So Obama produced his birth certificate. And still you have these racist people that doubt whether or not he is a citizen of the United States. These people still doubt it. He's produced his documents and they still doubt it because they don't really consider him to be an American. They don't think that because of his background that he should be president. And this whole birther issue is rooted in racism again. You have these people that don't like the idea of a black man in the White House, especially a black man with a Muslim name. They can't stand that. And so they find every means available to them to question this brother. And again, it's rooted in racism. You had Ted Cruz's father tell Obama to go back to Kenya. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because they used to tell us, and even today they tell us, go back to Africa. And these are examples of how race is a part of the reason why people dislike President Obama. Of course, there are policy issues. Of course, there are differences between the parties, and some animosity is based on that. But a lot of the animosity is based on the fact that we have a black president. And some people are simply uncomfortable with that idea. They can't get their mind around that idea. It disturbs them every day when they see that image of a black man and a black family in that White House. And, the history of the Tea Party, the Tea Party and their rallies and everything, is riddled with constant examples of racism. You have Tea Party rallies where they depict President Obama as a witch doctor. You have images of Obama depicted as a monkey. And these are images not circulated just by some random people on the street, but some of these images were circulated by political officials. And, so you have this kind of racial undertone to this whole Tea Party movement. I remember seeing signs talking about Obama's plan is going to amount to basically white slavery. There are signs at Tea Party rallies that say those kind of things. Tea Partiers come to rallies with Confederate flags. And we understand that the Confederate flag is a racist symbol. It is a symbol that was used during the Civil War. It is a symbol that was also used during the Civil Rights Movement. When people opposed integration, they would appear at rallies against the civil rights organizers, and they would bear Confederate flags to symbolize their opposition to integration. And as we know, the Confederacy, they fought to maintain their right to enslave Africans. So that symbol is a racist symbol, and that symbol is welcome at many Tea Party rallies. So those are just a few examples of how race is still a factor. And race is a big part of the opposition that President Obama faces. And, by stating that, he merely stated the obvious. I mean, the fact of the matter is, no matter how accomplished one becomes, despite graduating from Harvard, despite being on the Harvard Law Review, despite becoming a U.S. Senator, despite being reelected for president, in the eyes of some people, President Obama is just another nigger.